The movie begins in 1975. The Rockefeller Commission is set up to investigate the CIA's secret mind control program, MK-Ultra, from the 1950s and 1960s. When the investigation starts, the CIA orders all documents destroyed, so it's unclear if MK-Ultra really stopped. Dr. Emily, an agent of the National Crime Agency, NCA, is an expert in military psychology and can tell when someone is lying. She is called by Dr. Phillips, whose research she has used. He wants her to take part in a secret project where she reacts to pre-recorded material. Emily signs a contract, and Phillips warns her that the room and tapes don't exist. The video shows Test Group 17 in a white room with a few chairs and tables, exactly like the room Emily is in. A nurse brings in the first subject, Carrie, who is given a long questionnaire with strange questions, like which holiday she would cancel. When her pencil breaks, no one responds. Soon, the next subject, Tony, arrives and gets a pencil. He notices the chairs and tables are screwed to the floor and is also surprised by the odd questions, such as what he would give up 5 years of his life for. Crawford enters next and sits in front of Carrie, making her uneasy. He quickly fills out his questionnaire and starts helping Carrie in a condescending way. Finally, Paul joins and sits away from the table. Emily tells Phillips this is a classic case of hierarchy and subordination. She had done a similar experiment with a couple whose relationship didn't survive the project. But Phillips says this will be much more complex. After finishing his questionnaire, Crawford chats with Carrie, saying he volunteers for experiments like this because he needs the money. However, he thinks this place is fancier than typical labs, and that the payment will be higher than the usual $50 to $100. At that moment, a voiceover announces that Mother is coming in, and Phillips enters the room. He introduces himself as the supervisor and asks routine questions. He confirms that everyone is an American citizen, of sound mind, and not forced to come. Then he explains that they will be testing the nature and limitations of the human psyche. The test is divided into 4 phases, which will automatically start when he leaves. It lasts 8 hours, and the payment is $250. Phillips asks them to write a contact number on the questionnaire, and Paul says he doesn't have one. Next, they must put all personal effects, including phones, into envelopes. Tony mentions he is expecting a call from his girlfriend, but his phone is taken away anyway. Phillips announces that each phase will eliminate a person, but everyone will get paid the same regardless of the order. Phillips politely asks Carrie for her name, then suddenly grabs her face and shoots her. The others panic and drop to the floor as he locks the door and leaves. Crawford checks Carrie and confirms she's dead. Tony laughs, thinking it's a prank, but Crawford forces him to face the truth. Tony panics, screaming and trying to escape, but it's useless. Both Tony and Crawford try to move the walls and panels, but nothing works. Tony realizes the test is to see how people react to someone being shot. Emily asks Phillips how he got away with it. He explains that families report the subjects missing, and the cases are never solved. Emily notices American casualties in the paperwork and realizes this isn't a government project. Phillips confirms MK-Ultra has always been outside the government but doesn't answer her other questions. The men in the room are confused about their location and how the experiment works. Suddenly, a hatch drops the gun that killed Carrie. Paul picks it up and points it at the others, thinking only one can survive. Crawford checks and sees there's only one bullet. He concludes the gun is meant to help them escape, not kill. Tony complains, but Crawford tells everyone to stay calm. The windows are likely bulletproof, so shooting would be pointless. Another beep echoes, and a countdown appears on a small screen. A voice announces they have 2 hours left. The hatch drops a paper sheet in the room with a question. What number do Americans choose most frequently between 1 and 33? The rules state that the person farthest from the correct answer will be the next casualty, and if anyone refuses, all will be eliminated. Phillips is surprised Emily hasn't asked about the test goals yet, but she knows asking would end the interview. He asks for an observation, and Emily notices that the rules are written in a stilted way, as if using English as a second language. Phillips congratulates her, saying she is the fastest to notice. Emily points out that the MK program was shut down by 3 presidents due to civilian casualties, questioning how he can still conduct it. Phillips explains that after 9/11, options were limited and their actions were granted full amnesty. He quotes his superior, saying anything they do is also done by their enemies. In the room, Tony jumps on a table to try breaking the lights, to no effect. Crawford and Tony put their ears to floor vents and hear voices in a foreign language. Tony wonders if terrorists kidnapped them, but Crawford suggests it may be a psychological trick. Paul notices Kep scratched on the wall along with other names. Some words ask for help, others for prayers. A date, December 25th, is also written, making Tony think Muslims killed people on Christmas. After checking every wall, they still have no clues. A frustrated Tony covers Carrie's body with his jacket. Phillips tells Emily that the experiment is constantly evolving and she must help it. The test used to take 6 to 8 hours, but adding names on the walls has sped up the process. In the room, the men discuss possible answers but cannot agree. Frustrated, Paul hits the clock, turning it off. He prepares to shoot the window, but Tony tackles him to avoid wasting the bullet, which could bounce. The gun falls, and Crawford kicks it toward Tony, saying he doesn't want it. At that moment, a hatch opens. The men rush to look but see no one. Tony inserts his hand into the hole but finds nothing useful. Later, the men hide under the table and whisper to plan. A terrified Paul stays in a corner. Tony inserts his hand with a gun through the hole, and the hatch immediately closes, trapping his wrist. Paul and Crawford help him pull, and Tony manages to remove his hand, which comes out with new wounds, but no gun. Crawford uses his shirt to bandage Tony's injury while the hatch closes, and the clock reappears on a different wall. While watching, Phillips asks Emily if she has a problem with it. She assures him she doesn't, but when she goes to the bathroom, she throws up and has a breakdown. The men sit at the table to discuss the question. Paul is panicking, and Crawford wants them to pick the same number so either everyone dies or no one does. They share the names of their loved ones in case something happens. Crawford finally admits he has a daughter he never sees. Time runs out. Tony and Crawford say 7, but Paul says 17. The ventilation ducts release sleeping gas, and they all pass out. A medical team takes them away, and Phillips explains to Emily that the tape they saw was recorded that morning, so the men have been out for 3 hours. Emily must observe as Phillips shoots Tony to continue the test. The survivors wake up to music. Crawford confirms Tony is dead, and Paul breaks down. Crawford attacks Paul for giving the wrong number. A gun is thrown in, but Crawford stops when he hears noises in the vents. Another question arrives. Where does the USA rank for average IQ? The person farthest from the answer will die. Crawford hides the hint that says the answer is outside the top 10. Phillips leaves Emily to watch. Paul panics again, but Crawford reassures him. They realize they need to escape and plan carefully. Emily secretly steals the keycard. Crawford breaks the lights to create a distraction, and Paul grabs a gun. Crawford climbs toward the vent, but needs Paul's help. Together, they get into the ducts. Crawford finds a way to reach the roof, but scientists spray him with sleeping gas and bring him back. Emily tries to open the door with the key card, but Phillips stops her. She realizes the experiment is about apoptosis, training the mind to let go for survival. Paul wakes up and checks on Crawford. They have 30 minutes left. Using a hint, Crawford tells Paul the answer is 5 and plans their escape. Crawford covers himself with the dead subject's blood to avoid being caught. Paul refuses, so Crawford gives him the gun. They agree Paul will save 5, Crawford 4, hoping this plan will stop the experiment and save lives. When time runs out, Paul can't do it and self-deletes, completing apoptosis. The scientists enter and shoot Crawford. Paul is dragged away screaming. Phillips tells Emily that very few people pass this test. Only 1 in 20 has the mind to become a civilian weapon. Emily realizes the program is creating suicide bombers, like in the Middle East, to fight fire with fire. Phillips praises Paul as a patriot, but Paul runs. He asks Emily for help, but she locks the door. As the cleaning team enters, Phillips welcomes Emily into the program. Security guides Paul toward another room. Emily realizes Phase 1 was just a test to find suitable subjects. Paul joins other men who passed, and a voice announces Phase 2. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.